Great, thank you. So most of us should be familiar with the CST team. So for those on the team, if they will be speaking, please introduce yourself prior to that. Here's a look at our agenda today. It is pretty jam-packed full of a number of different items that we'd like to have discussion on. We'll talk through some PD power plants update. We have some discussion around the alteplase order for occluded catheters. There's the catheter insertion order. I'd like to touch upon the dialysis management tab, circle back on some scheduling related order and some questions we have. We also have a gap analysis with regards to the PD record orders in clinic chart form. And then we'd like to revisit the referral triage and waitlist just because we have a few more questions around that. I'd like to touch upon the COVID screening form. We have Kathy from PhD Informatics to speak through some allied health and review some documentation. And I'd like to take a deep dive in some forms because there were some gaps that I'd like to highlight and get clarity on from the group. And then we'll finish off with a session recap and next steps. So very quickly, purpose of this session is to validate what works and identify any gaps. We want to validate the content that we have and the standards and processes that will be used to configure your new workflow. There is a glossary of terms, and I would encourage the group here, if there are any questions about CST specific language or lingo, please speak up and we're more than happy to clarify for everyone. I'm just gonna start off and pass it over to Carrie with regards to some PD orders and updates.
Thank you, Maritza. I'm just going to present my desktop here. Let me know when you can see the Excel spreadsheet.
Yep, I can see it.
Perfect. Dr. Singh, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. So I do have a session that's set up with you specifically for order sets. That's for April 21st. I just wanted to kind of get you to take a look at this list here to make sure we capture the correct PPOs. Do you want me to make the font larger? This is the list that I've collected.
Thanks for asking. No, I'm good. I'm on my iPad, so I can enlarge you without you having to do anything.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thanks. I was just checking to make sure I have your meeting with me in my schedule, and it is good. Okay, I was checking the April 21st date.
Perfect. And so if this is the complete list, I will be talking more in depth about each of these PPOs, and we pretty much have power plans that are already built for most of these PPOs. But of course, if there's any gaps or missing items, I will bring it up to you. And then I know in the subsequent session, we have Dr. Prakal as well. So at that time, we're gonna figure out how to update these power plans.
Okay, thanks.
And I just had a few other questions. Are there any missing PPOs, or are there any other orders that you are currently writing but aren't captured in PPOs, like handwritten requisitions or just a collection of orders that you manually have to handwrite?
I mean, I think most of this would be in there. I mean, sometimes patients come in and we just, do a flush or something like that, but I think we've incorporated that in previous orders, if I'm not mistaken, but maybe somebody else can remind me.
I see. Okay. In terms of like ad hoc, like one-off orders, most of
it would be like a catheter malfunction assessment. I think that's been in a PPO before, but do you remember where that is, Carrie?
That's in your occluded.
Okay, fine. That's good. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And also I was.
Hello, I'm Chris, and the PD nurse. Dr. Singh, do we need to include the antibiotic for the well prescription?
Yep, that is also captured on the PPO.
Where is that located?
Sorry, antibiotics for what problem, Chris? I couldn't hear you very well.
The Laurel Pharmacy antibiotics.
Oh, okay. I think it is on the PPO, I think, right? That it gets faxed to Laurel, if I'm not mistaken, but we'll have to go through.
But it's not in the list.
But I think it's in the peritonitis protocol, the outpatient one. Oh, hang on. Yeah, I think it's in that 781, isn't it not?
It's not.
The
There
outpatient.
was the PPO that was specific for.
Form
Oh, okay.
for that prescription. This is basically for just Laurel prescription. It will be included on that infection PPO, but the form is quite different. It's a different form that we fax to Laurel Pharmacy.
Okay, let me take a look for that.
Flo just asked if it's with. She said it's with Home HD, but yes, Flo, it was used originally for PD. Yeah. So if it's already in the HHD, then we would just need to update it for PD.
Okay, let me take a look. And possibly that might be one of the ones that we're building out for you in quick orders, because it's just one antibiotic order. And then it prints out.
I can share you my screen if you want.
Sorry, can you repeat that, Chris?
I can share you my screen. I have it on my screen. If you want.
Oh, sure. If you can forward it to me, that'd be great.
I don't know how to do that.
I'll give you my email address. I'll type in the chat right after.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Can you think of any other PPOs that I haven't captured here? If not, the only other question I have is for PET. Dr. Singh, do you guys perform that at VGH?
Yes, yeah. All patients have one done, yeah.
I didn't find a PPO for that. How is it currently being ordered?
So it's part of initiation onto PD, and it's actually like a protocol on its own. It's like a standard procedure, but we don't order it by like each thing. We'll just say PET and it gets scheduled. But there are obviously a sequence of things that need to be done for it. Nursing actions as well as lab orders embedded in it in a time frame and preparation for it, etc.
Right, because there's a series of lab orders associated with it.
Correct, yeah.
Chris, would you have a copy of this protocol? I just want to match it with the
protocol on that, but we have the instruction form. There is no written protocol, but there is an instruction form for it.
Okay. How do nurses
how is it currently being done at St. Paul's, right? Because it's exactly a PET is standard. It doesn't change between the two sites. So do you have it already in existence for St. Paul's?
I do.
Okay.
I have a power plan that's already built, but I was hoping if you had something on paper, I can cross-reference to make sure nothing is missing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean,
don't think so. So
these were built in conjunction with VGH and PHC at the same time. So they were sort of designed already with both sites in mind, other than maybe the site lab work and so on.
Right. Okay. So I remember those sessions a long time ago. Thanks, Wayne. So they should be fairly easy and would not need any significant modification, except as Wayne set out, like just where they would go to the two different sites, right?
Okay, perfect. In that case, I'll just go have a brief general overview in our upcoming session, just to refresh everyone's mind about it. And otherwise, I think I have everything that I need. Maritza, I'll hand it back to you.
Great, thanks. Great. So I really wanted to circle back on some peritoneal dialysis power plans update that came up at our initial session. So like Carrie mentioned, there will be an order sets review and gaps session scheduled separately. So some of the optimization requests that have come out from St. Paul's include a request to change the PD maintenance 1 month day of treatment power plan. It's currently built out as a day of treatment. There's the request to change it to a single phase. There's been a kind of ticket to investigate this request. It's just currently sitting in investigate status and will be included in Carrie's session. And then the second request is to build a net new PD chronic lab power plan to support the transfer of patients between independent and long-term care. So that's also in an investigate status. Wanted just to give you an update on that, Dr. Singh. Okay. Yeah. And then I'm just going to pass this over to Dee Dee from our PET team. She's going to talk through this alteplase order for included catheters. Dee Dee, are you able to present, or do you need to share your screen? Not sure. Oh, perfect. There you go.
I don't think we can hear you talking, Dee Dee.
Yeah, you can't hear your audio.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, so we do have the 2 out.
Oh, there.
Yes, can you hear me?
There's a little bit of an echo.
There's a huge buzz, like.
Ringing in the ears, I would say.
You might need to mute one of your devices, maybe your laptop. I'm not sure.
I'm just gonna call in through my phone real quick then.
Okay. While Dee Dee's going to be calling in, can I just ask Wayne and our St. Paul's folks here, do you have prescriptions for alteplase, administration for patients at home? Because that's what Dee Dee's going to talk through next. So just wanted to
Yeah, so talking over with Jennifer and stuff, we don't send patients home with alteplase. They come into us and we do the administration here, and it's just ordered as a standalone alteplase.
Okay.
Like they just use the alteplase order.
Okay.
I just want to say though that that's true for PD at VGH as well, but for home hemodialysis, patients do go home with with alteplase.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in case we're planning to do one that's applicable to both home hemo and PD, that would be difficult because we don't send PD patients home with it.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Hi, can everyone hear me better now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So on my screen here, we have the 2 alteplase quick orders. Just to go back to this one, this is the one we looked over last session. For the special instructions, what was added was that we added for home HD patient self-administration. And then again, this would be the order comments would be the instructions that we added. There was one thing that when we tested it, if we don't put the once in, like the frequency in, it defaults to 1. So would we want to put a frequency in so that it doesn't default to 1?
Um,
Can I ask, Nick,
DD?
like, shouldn't this be going to my equivalent and the home hemo team as opposed to the PD team?
Yeah, that's correct, Wayne. DD, this order is for home hemo. This means we have for today is for PD.
Oh, sorry. I thought I was just going to ask that one, but this one as well, it's the same
Probably the same question.
question. It does default to once. And I think on the requirements, we didn't want a frequency in there, but then the frequency will default to once if we put it as blank.
And Dr. Singh, I just want to clarify, previously you just mentioned that you won't be prescribing a patient without a place to go home with?
For PD, no.
No, this is based on one of the PPOs that I found. It's for the peritoneal dialysis alteplase order for occluded PD catheter. Is that for the nurses to administer?
Yeah.
Okay, Didi, in that case,
In that case, then we can remove it from the quick order page then?
we might just move it into not the outpatient quick orders, but just the quick orders.
Okay. Can I confirm the details for if we move it onto the quick order page? Would we still like it would be an inpatient order? Is that correct?
It would be an outpatient order, but the nursing staff would be administering it in the outpatient clinic, is my understanding.
If that's the case, then it would still stay on the outpatient quick order page.
Can you make it so that it's not a prescription?
Yes, I can make it so that it's not a prescription, but in that case, would we want to remove the order comments if the nurse is, or is the nurse going to follow the same order comment instructions?
It's for the nurse.
Yeah, it's for the nurse.
Okay. So can I confirm that we want once as the defaulted frequency then?
Is this generally ordered once, Dr. Singh and Wayne? Or would it be on a
I'm going to
frequency?
default to Dr.
No,
C, maybe the PD team.
It would usually only be ordered once. Yeah.
Okay, and would you foresee an inpatient being ordered with this as well?
Yes.
That was my next question. Thanks, Terry.
No worries. And Didi, maybe we should add it to inpatient and outpatient quick orders.
Sure, and then I'll
ask-
remove the full instructions for this for home PD patient self-administration piece then.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do we need to move that for home PD administration? Piece?
Yeah, we can remove this piece.
I think that gets dangerous.
Do you want it to say for PD patient? Because we do have a separate alteplase order that we're creating for home HD patients. That's going to be in the same folder.
Can you repeat that again? There'll be a folder that one is for HHD to be administered at home. And then there'll be one for nursing
PD.
administration at the center, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So I'm recommending for DD to keep the part that says for home PD patient self-administration to rephrase that to for PD patient for nurse administration.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Can I just ask a clinical question? Would the nurse require you to reorder this again in case the first attempt doesn't work?
We wouldn't do it more than once at a single encounter, though, I don't think. I've never had that happen. You can ask Chris if that's ever happened, but I don't think so.
So we usually just use it once and then
Okay.
move up.
Okay.
Okay, in that case, I just changed it, and then I'll make sure that this is an inpatient order and not a prescription. Is there anything else that we need to modify on this order? And confirming that it's the right patient of under anticoagulants, so it would be under medications, and then it would be under anticoagulant.
I'm going to ask maybe a stupid question to both Sunit and Chris more than anything else, because I don't see anyone from St. Paul's on here. When we get the Alteplase order, is that we take that stock from what, like McDonald's pharmacy supply to the group, or does it come up from pharmacy itself? Chris, do you know?
I think we have it in stock.
Yeah, and I think it's a McDonald's pharmacy.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Or pharmacy
It
that
is.
supplies it. So I'm just wondering the implications of it. Like, I know we need the order, but I'm wondering the implications of where it's routed to give. Like, will pharmacy then be trying to also send it up, type of thing? Does that make sense, Flo and Maritza, or am I just
No, that makes sense, because you don't want 2 doses to be like an extra dose to be sent up when you already have it on the unit, right?
Yeah.
We can take that away just to ensure the configuration on the back end makes sense. You're not getting duplicate meds.
Okay, so I think this piece would be 2 milligrams per vial IV once for PD patients nurse administration, and then the order comment we will keep for the nurse to administer. Okay, sounds good. And then for the instructions on when to hold and restart medications, the option is to keep instructions on page 1 on paper. Would that be an option that you guys would like to go with?
I'm sorry, I just missed that for a second. So this is with the Alteplase order if we're holding medications for patients because of this?
If I may, I think Dee, are you jumping into the next order, which is the PD catheter insertion prep?
Yes, sorry. I thought I saw, sorry. I think I'm on the wrong screen. I was on the wrong slide. I think I just jumped into that one.
Yeah, so just to summarize, we're okay with the configurations for the Alteplase order. We're just going to transition over to your current paper order set, which includes instructions for the patient to prep prior to a PD catheter insertion, which is a 2-page form. The first page is a list of instructions on when a patient should hold certain medications and when they should restart it. And then page 2 of their current order set are prescriptions for bowel prep. So that's the discussion we're going to have now. So I'll let you take over, Dee Dee.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just go, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. I believe you have it on the slide.
Yep, I could bring it up.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, so just for everyone to be on the same page, is this current paper order set. So this is page 1 here, I have on the left, and then page 2 is on the one on the right. So the first page, from my understanding, is that the nurse would provide this copy to the patient. And then page 2 is a prescription that the patient would take to a community pharmacy to get these bowel-specific medications filled out for them. So page 1, unfortunately, this does not fulfill certain power plan build requirements. So, and we understand the need for the patient to have this as a paper copy with the instructions and the orders as well. So we were just going to discuss the number of options. So first one being, we can keep the instructions on page 1 on paper, which could be accessible through FormFast.
Can I just ask one question?
Yes.
I'm not certain what you mean by it says it doesn't fulfill the bill requirements. Like, so if a patient's going for bowel surgery and needs to hold their anticoagulants and have a prep, how is this different from that? You're not doing that for that either? Is Cerner not doing that for that, or?
I think it's because the way this order set is laid out, it's provided to the patient a few days or maybe up to a week prior to their catheter insertion. I think it's a week before. So
right.
I'm not sure, Carrie, if you can fill in about the power plan bill not being fulfilled here.
Yeah, I can speak to it. Mm-hmm. So Dr. Singh, unfortunately for Cerner, there is no functionality to hold a medication. What providers are doing are they're discontinuing, and then they have to keep track of when to place the order again, so that patient is back on the medication. And when I was looking at this PPO, it seemed like the instructions were given to the patient because they're the ones that are administering these medications at home. And they're the ones that need to know when to hold it for a certain period of time before restarting again. And so even if I were to build this in a power plan for you, when you won't be able to print a power plan to give it to the patient. So
okay, no, I understand. I'm happy for something not to be a power plant. I'm quite happy with paper, but I'm just wondering, like, is this going to be the same thing for preoperative orders for outpatients having surgery? Because this is essentially what it is, right? Like, if I'm a person going in for a cholecystectomy tomorrow and I'm on warfarin, they have to give me some instructions, right?
Totally.
So is that going to be the same thing for those kinds of, like for example, the thrombosis clinic, which often sees patients before surgery, they're going to give patients instructions. So is it the same kind of thing? They will be on paper as well, or?
It sounds like it, because even at St. Paul's, a lot of it is still on paper.
I see. Okay, that's fine. Just wanted to make sure.
And so, Sunit, what we do here when we're doing a bedside insertion, do we also do it for the surgical ones as well? No. Dr. Scott, the surgeon, would do the hold of the medication piece of it, but when we're doing the bedside ones, we print off the DC renal, bowel prep and bedside tube insertion, and there it has all the tick boxes to what medications they need to hold, and we give the patient that.
Right, okay.
And so one of the options that I think one of the clinics were using was creating an auto text template where it has all of this information, and the sections where you have to fill out, for example, like how long to hold the medication for, there could be a little drop down for you to select an option. And once you're finished completing that document, then you can print it out and just give it to the patient. There's that option as well if you want to do electronic versus just using paper. And hence why Didi is bringing it up, because her team will be the one that's building it. Would that be something? Sorry, Didi, go ahead.
Oh, I was just asking, would the thing on paper or the auto text template be, which option would you prefer for the instructions?
Well, I think the paper is fine. It's an easier thing to give to patients, and this is given in the kidney clinic as well. So I think that would probably be the best thing.
Okay, that sounds good. Then I guess we'll keep it on paper, and then we'll have the bowel medications on the quick order pages with the order comments.
Just to comment on the whole thing on Chris and the PD nurse. Also, just to have a comparison from Promise, when we say hold, we actually discontinue it in Promise.
Sorry, that was really difficult to hear. So I'm not sure if there was a question directed to me or.
Like when we put patient medication on hold, there's no button and promise to stay hold. We just discontinue the medication and then we reorder it once it's.
Oh, yeah. I think in Promise, what the pharmacists have done is they sometimes keep the medication on the list, but in the notes, they say on hold until X. I think I saw Kevin on the call. He might be able to verify that.
But for us nurses, when the order is on hold, we stop it on promise because there's no such thing as hold and promise too.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've seen that as well. I've seen medications on promise where patients are on it and I see it, someone type hold, but I haven't done that myself. Are there specific medications that you guys like having that option?
No, we're just looking at the example as those medications for pre-insertion. Just like they say RNS, and then you say on hold, and then resume when the hemoglobin does something like that. So what I'm saying is, it's the same thing as what we are doing right now. They only want it on hold, but there's no stop button.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's so for this, honestly, nobody goes into Promise and takes warfarin off or calcium off their med sheet because we're just telling the patient not to take it for a couple of days. I actually think discontinuing it and then expecting someone to remember to reorder it is going to create more problems, but that's a problem with Cerner if that's the way it works. Because if you discontinue something and then another provider comes in and doesn't know that they're supposed to tell the patient restart or enter it into the computer again, you're going to create more medication problems, in my opinion. But that's the only medications that we would put on hold really are things like, well, we put lots of things on hold where we tell a patient not to take it for a few days. Like almost every medication could be. I don't know how to reconcile that with what you're saying is that something has to be discontinued. I mean, if a patient drops their blood pressure for a couple of days, I tell them not to take a medication, and then 2 days later, I'm not sure how I'm going to always remember that needs to be restarted, or so it's a problem.
Can I just clarify really quickly? Page 2 of your current order set has prescriptions for bowel meds. So we are proposing the option of adding these as orders to the quick orders folder. I believe, if Wayne, correct me if I'm wrong, these are currently a paper prescription that's given to your PD patients, right?
I'm going to admit that I was doing something else for 30 seconds or so.
Yes, for at VGH, it's a paper thing because the patients take it to a community pharmacy to pick up the medication. So
for the bowel prep, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the same. And I'm just sending you a copy of the BC Renal Bowel Prep PD catheter form that has the hold stuff in it, just so you've got it for record.
So I just want to confirm, Dr. Singh, would you prefer to keep the whole 2-page order set on paper then? Or would you be open to having the bowel meds available for ordering on Cerner where you would generate a prescription to then give to the patient?
I mean, I would just keep it, it's a combined thing. I would just keep it as one thing on paper.
Okay.
Right, so can we just double check how they're gonna continue to access the PPOs after go live?
Yeah, I think right now, Wayne, is it just available like in the unit? Because I don't believe this is available in Forms Fast for ordering. Or for printing, sorry.
So for us, there is a PD catheter bedside order set. Isn't there a power plan? Yeah. There is a power plan there that has all the stuff in it. It just doesn't have the bowel protocol pieces in it. And it's like the day of type of thing, because it has the order that triggers off from KCC to renal short stay to book the bed, then the antibiotics. And I've got Christy in here, so guiding me as I'm looking towards her. The DDAVP and all the meds that need administered like just before the PD catheter is inserted. So there's already that there.
I just want to say that right now, this form is available on the PPO's Vancouver Coastal, right? Like if you go on VGH, the computer, and
Yeah.
look at the
Then you
PPOs, this is there. And that's where we get it from.
Yep, it is available on the website. However, once VGH goes live,
Yep.
the whole plan is to move all the orders onto Cerner. So we just want to make sure if we are staying on paper for this piece, we need to make sure you can access it after go live.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And if there's other things that are on paper, how is that working?
Some people created protocols and like it went to shop link, or they created their own prescriptions that they print out.
I see.
I don't think St. Paul's is working off of paper PPOs anymore.
No, we are not. It's 90% in Cerner. Like the bowel prep one, everyone block your ears for a second. We just have a photocopied sign sheet that we just add the patient information on the top and just send that out. No one heard me say that, okay?
Yeah. I'm cheering, Wayne. I'm cheering.
And I'm going to deny ever saying that. Can
Who are
someone
you?
delete the recording?
Yeah. Who are you? Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't know what to say.
So ultimately, like I would sit there and say, if there was a bowel protocol that printed a script that could go to McDonald's pharmacy or whoever the patient's pharmacy that they wanted to use, I think that would be the ideal situation to work towards and get us off of the cheap way that we are doing it. Yeah.
In that case, I would recommend to add these two into quick orders, and Dr. Singh would just click and then fill in the dosages and stuff like that, and then it'll print off as a prescription and you give to the patient.
It's, you know, the problem is, okay, so walk me through that again. So this will be on a quick orders. And the tick boxes will all be there, and we just tick off what's applicable to that patient, print it and give it to them.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah.
The moment you place the order, the prescription will print.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm hearing that we will build.
We just fax it to the pharmacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing that we will build these out to be available for quick orders for ordering, that will then print off a prescription that can then be given to the patient and or faxed to the pharmacy. Okay, does that sound okay, Dr. Singh? We'll move forward with that as
Yep, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I would like to move on to speaking about the dialysis management tab and just reviewing some scheduling orders.
Sorry, Marissa.
Yeah.
Should we just quickly confirm where we want it?
Oh,
Didi,
yes,
do you
I'm so
have that
sorry.
information already?
Thanks for that, Carrie. Sorry.
No worries. Did Didi drop off?
She might have. I'll just bring over my power chart here and logged in as a provider, so we can just gather that. So it would be in the outpatient quick orders. There is the medications folder here, and I'm not sure if it would be appropriate in this bowel regimen or if you wanted it.
We're still seeing the PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, here, let me just share again. Sorry, everyone. Can you see power chart?
Yeah.
Okay, so I should be in the quick orders tab. As I was saying, there's the medications folder with the bowel regimen subfolder. Wondering if that would be the most appropriate place for these two medications.
No, I don't think it should be in the bowel protocol area. Sorry, I'm just looking at the rest of the options in here and trying to figure out where it would best be.
Would you like some more time to think about it? I can, send a screenshot of what the quick orders, folder looks like.
Sure.
And then that way, then you can kind of think through a little bit more. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. I'm going to jump back into the slide. Can you guys see my PowerPoint now?
No,
Or is it
it's
still?
stuck.
Oh, goodness. Sorry, guys. Okay, I'm just going to switch back. Okay, there we go. Okay, can everyone see that okay? PowerPoint slide deck?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So with Children's going live, there was a request from that group to build a net new PD intake and output component and to have it be available in this dialysis management tab here, indicated here. There is just some requests for information to be more front facing for all the end users. And along with that request, these are the different documented line items that has been requested to pull through into that new component. So I wasn't sure if this would be helpful from an adult perspective because it is coming from pediatrics. So the different line items, it would include the cycle exchange number for the different modalities, the cumulative ultrafiltration volumes, ultrafiltration per cycle. Just to note though, for adults, when the nurses are documenting this in iView, the highlighted and bold italicized line items are not defaulted on view. So if they were needing to document to that, the nurses would have to select it to be on view. So I'm not sure if this would be more of a pediatric specific data that is relevant or if it's inclusive for both adults and peds.
And is this for the inpatient or is it for like the outpatient unit where patients are getting PD? Like, because it's a little bit different children's than adults. So I'm not sure. I mean, we would never want the like ultrafiltration per cycle or anything. So, we just kind of look at the data at the end of the treatment. So,
Yeah.
I'm the only like nephrologist on the call, I think, unless Dave or B joined while I wasn't looking, but I don't think adult nursing would look at that at all. But.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask about that because if it's not documented by adult nurses, then it won't pull through into the net new component. But the component will be available as an option within this list of components here in your dialysis management tab. It can be selected off these, so you don't need to look at it. Information related to the cycle exchange numbers and so forth can be found in results review. So that information that the adult nurses document to can be found elsewhere. So what I'm hearing though is that this isn't valuable for adults, really.
No, I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Can I just, I'm trying to recall because I think there is currently, it's really hard to work out what the ultrafiltration rate is on the patients in the current charting system that goes on. And I recall there being like the PD physicians complaining that you almost have a PhD in the mathematics to sit there and work out what's gone in, what's come out to work out your end total right at the end. Does this end up simplifying that so they can just get an easier number?
It's possible. I'm not sure if the request is more about wanting a wholesome cumulative like values to pull through so they can track and trend.
I'm going to try and find Dave and Abid and see if I can ask them that question because they've got PD clinic at the moment, so that's why they're not here. But it's
okay.
I'll see what I can find out and maybe report back to you in about 5 minutes because they're just down this corridor from me.
Okay. Yes.
For this new component request from Children's, is the idea for it to be default already available in the dialysis management end page, or it's something that users will need to pull in and check it off as a component to be added to the list?
I think it was just to be available in terms of it being default available. I don't know if we decided or if I gathered that requirement from Children's. So it's possible that we could have it available in the tab, but then maybe default it off. And then if it's needed for Children's, they would just have to select it on view.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking if we don't need it in adults, then I wouldn't want it default there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Okay, so why don't I take that back? So it sounds like what I'm hearing is that this wouldn't really be useful for the adult pediatric, PD world, but if it is a component that is requested and needed for peds, we can request to see if it can be defaulted off, and then the end users in Children's would just have to select it on to be available on view. Would that be okay for everyone? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so another update I have is related to the PD prescription power form for both CAPD and CCPD. There was another request that came through for Children's for this goal weight field here to be to allow the provider to enter in a range. Previously, it was just a numeric field, which where the end user could only input one number. So just wanted to update the group and let you know that you can now put a range for a goal rate.
That's great. I think that's a good addition.
Yeah, the only thing from a nursing perspective is that nurses in iView cannot document a range. So that's the only downside. And I think that we had some questions around the use of this goal weight line item in iView. From our last discussion, it came up when we were doing a gap analysis of different forms. This goal weight documentation field is a shared field between hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis. So there was a request if whether we could build out a specific PD goal weight so that the value doesn't cross into the different sections. I think we had some session kind of meetings with Wayne to discuss if there would be any cutover implications for live sites. And I believe Wayne indicated that there were no issues. Just because that goal weight information would be available in the prescription, which could be found in Forms Browser and Results Review.
Hammerhead setup for the goal weight in a range documentation now. I would think I was looking at the updates on the EDD. So is there cutover required for the previous value to pull forward?
Yes, I believe there will be.
And that's okay?
From St. Paul's, it is.
Okay, and Children's is okay?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, for us, we're fine.
Can I just ask, sorry, what you guys mean by cut over here? I'm lost it for a moment here.
So because we're changing this field, everything previously needs to be cut over from before, just to redocument it so that it will continue to pull forward.
Okay.
It won't impact us because we haven't used it yet, but I'm just thinking about the other sites that are already using this field and it's going to change.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because when the acute care team reached out to Wayne, that historical information in iView isn't really necessary. And if it gets wiped, it gets wiped, because in the prescription, that would be the source of truth. And then if any historical data around goal weights needed to be referenced, they can check that through Forms Browser or Results Review.
But on the M page though?
No, because I think they're separate.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't flow into each other, so there's no impact to the M page. So we will follow up about the request to build a net new specific PD goal weight in our next session, but that's something that our team is looking into doing.
Can I just ask a quick question? Is this additional goal weight an absolute must-have? Like, it's going to break workflows, it's going to have negative impact if we don't have it as a separate DTA?
I think for VGH, it will be an impact because we do have patients that are hybrid between HD and PD. So the goal weights would be different.
So just to add to that, if you document in the PD/IV section, it will flow into the HD one, which would be confusing for end users. Okay, no, good question.
It's just all the trickle down effect of that one small change is not small.
I did want to circle back with this hemodialysis catheter removal order. There was a lot of discussion about operational out of system like workflow steps. So currently we will be building out this order to include the scheduling locations of the VGH PD unit and the VGH VA unit. We just wanted to circle back with the group to ensure that if these two locations are available for selection, how they were going to manage when an HD patient needing the HD cath removal would be done out of system between, I think, Sophia and Esther. Because from a clinical perspective and from my understanding is that PD patients needing an HD catheter removed would enter this order and it would be scheduled to be done in the VGH PD unit. And then HD patients needing this HD catheter removed would be scheduled through the VA clinic. And then there'd be out of system communication between Sophia and Esther about scheduling. And Flo, I'm just wondering if I got that correct, just based on an email that you sent previously updating us on the workflow.
That's the one where I listed out the steps in bullet point, right? As long as it was following that, then yeah, it should be fine.
Yeah, I think my question for Dr. Singh is that if you're ordering a HD catheter removal for any of your patients, if you're seeing a schedule, like two different scheduling locations, would that be confusing? Or would you be okay just to always select VGH PD unit?
No, I don't think it's confusing to see the two. The one thing though is that if it's a hemodialysis patient that requires a hemodialysis catheter removal, you are correct in that that order would go to the vascular access clinic, and the clerk in the vascular access clinic would then either have that removal organized in the PD unit, or it would be removed in interventional radiology. So
yes.
Is that's your current understanding?
Yes.
Okay, and then the communication between the clerk in the vascular access clinic and the clerk in the peritoneal dialysis unit is usually like a walkover conversation. Right? So
yeah.
that is still okay, like, yeah?
Yep, as long as everyone on the two units would know what to do. I think there's just some gaps that came up around like vacation coverage and who would cover the request list that these scheduling orders would fall to. But I think that would be an appropriate conversation that Flo would have with the members of her team to sort that out of system.
Okay, and then I guess like who would enter that and schedule it? Would it be the clerk in the vascular access clinic, or like?
Yeah, so if as a provider, if the patient requires this HD catheter to be removed, they would enter in this hemodialysis catheter removal order and then select an appropriate scheduling location, whether it's the PD unit or the VA unit. And then depending on that scheduling location selection, the order would flow into the clerk's request list to book and schedule appropriately.
Okay. I'm just thinking about this for a second, because what currently might happen is there's a hemo patient and they're on Wednesday evening, and the doctor who's on call Wednesday evening, who is not one of the regular providers in PD, for example, would write an order saying remove hemodialysis catheter. That order would go to the clerk in the vascular access clinic, right?
Well, they would, within the order, if they were to bring it up, they have the option of selecting PD or the vascular access.
But the provider doesn't know that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The provider cannot know that when they're requesting that. That's going
So
to
if-
happen. That's going to happen subsequently, maybe 2 weeks later, that we actually know which location it's going to be done in.
Because my understanding is that regardless of the location selected, there will always be some form of communication between the two clerks, between Sophia and Esther, for booking. And correct me if I'm wrong, Flo.
Yeah.
So if there is the incident where a provider who's not really familiar with the workflow selects something incorrectly, I think that the out-of-system communication between the two clerks would catch that. And then the appointment would still be scheduled though.
Because I think ultimately what it is before Sophia and the vascular access clinic actually schedules it, she has to talk to Esther or Dan or Chris in IDC to ensure that there's resources and room available for it to happen before she can book it.
Right, but I think the issue that I'm bringing up, Flo, is that you know, Esther, or you know, let's just use generic names. The clerk in PD does not want to get 17 orders for dialysis catheter removals. Like if people enter remove dialysis catheter and they all put in VGH PD unit, then it's not the clerk in PD's job to manage and go, oh, these 17 people are on hemodialysis and they're acutes and they, like, I mean, that's not how it works. Those would all go to Sophia. So we need to make sure they go to, I'm sorry, I shouldn't use specific people's names, go to the vascular access team.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be part of our like education and teaching to providers. If they're ordering an HD catheter removal for an HD patient, then they would have to select the VA. If it was a PD patient that has a CVC line that needs to remove, then they would order it to the PD unit. And it's, I guess, yeah, it'll be like an education piece. Hopefully it makes sense. Like it's no different from them writing it in the chart, wherever that chart is, remove CVC. And then if it was in the HD unit, it goes to the vascular clinic's inbox. And then if it was,
can you actually have the default be the VGH VA? The number of people who in the provider in the main dialysis unit, nobody should be putting PD unit.
Yeah. Except for the PD nephrologist, right?
But that wouldn't occur in the main hemodialysis unit. It occurs like in our unit, and we would know to put in VGH PD unit. But otherwise, it should default to VGH VA.
Can we default the scheduling location?
Can anyone on my team answer that? I think it's an option.
James, are you on the line? Can you provide an answer to that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
We just wanted to know if the scheduling location could be defaulted to VGH VA.
It's not a standard, but we can look into that, yes.
Would that be your preference, Dr. Singh?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll look into that. Have the scheduling location defaulted to VGH VA, and then just ensure that there is site education to know, depending if it's PD versus HD patient, which location to select.
Sorry, I just realized that this is an existing order that's used at St. Paul's. So there will be more locations in that list. So James, just keep that in mind. I don't know if we can default it just for VGH and not for St. Paul's. Right,
yeah, so the only way that there's a possibility is depending on the ordering location, but again, that's not a standard build, so it would be something we would have to look into. And so you're right, Heather, it would impact many other locations also.
Okay, we'll take that back with your preferences in mind, Dr. Singh, and we can bring it up in the next session.
Great.
Okay, I am mindful of time. We are 3 minutes over 2. Are you able to stay on for just a few more minutes? I just had one last update just to circle back with. This was just in regards to the case conferences. It came up in one of our PD scheduling sessions that from a Cerner perspective, I don't believe the PD unit qualifies qualifies for the use of an actual case conference order. because you don't normally have other multidisciplinary providers join in your conferences currently. So what we're recommending is that if we do need to schedule these conferences, that you would use the follow-up clinic PD order, and there would be a net new appointment type called patient family meeting. So that would look like, in my next slide, this would be what the order would look like. And in the drop-down options for different appointment requests, we could include a patient family meeting option. And
okay,
then
I just remember one thing, because when we had this discussion before, I think when we talked about how we have like the multidisciplinary patient review rounds, is that a case conference? Because then everybody does attend that. I'm just.
Would other providers in different areas also be included in that multidisciplinary team, or is it just multidisciplinary in the sense that there's like, you know, your allied, your nursing?
Oh yes, yes,
clerical.
it's just allied. There's no physician from another team at those meetings, no.
Yeah, so I think given that it wouldn't qualify to meet like the Cerner case conference definition, which includes like providers from different disciplines coming together to discuss.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So would this be appropriate then? We would have a net new appointment type. You would enter in this follow-up order, select patient family meeting. It would fall onto the request list for the clerk to book appropriately. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay. Great. That's all I really had from a provider centric like update and so forth. So we have some takeaway items that we'll circle back with you in our next session. Did you have any questions before you drop off?
No, not right now. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Yeah, and then you do have your upcoming order set sessions with Carrie, so you can look forward to that.
All right. See you next week.
Thank you so much. Okay. I did want to just let the group know that this is just a quick update on the workflow, specifically around when patients forget to bring medications needed during an appointment. So I'm speaking specifically around Darby, EPO, and iron. So Winnie was able to clarify the workflow from the VGH pharmacy perspective. So in this event, the med management team has been able to configure in Cerner on the back end that the PD nurse can take the specific medications from the hemodialysis unit ward stock, and there's no implications there. There was some concern about supply chain communication with McDonald's Pharmacy. And I think currently right now, McDonald's Pharmacy can accommodate any minor discrepancies between what the hemodialysis requisition and promise has in the event that the PD nurse takes these meds from the HDU. If there are any concerns about that kind of supply discrepancy, we do have available in Cerner the renal med admin report, which St. Paul's currently uses to communicate supply requests with McDonald's Pharmacy. And we have highlighted previously that there will be the need to continue updating information into Promise. Hope this is an okay update. Any questions there? I think there's this, I'm just kind of maybe looking towards Flo because I think you had some concerns about the ward stock supply stuff.
No, just wanted an answer for this, which you gave.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, and I'm going to move forward and let Irvin from the acute team take over. He's just going to look through and discuss with the group the gap analysis on this particular form here.
Thanks, Marita.
No problem.
Where's my screen? There you go. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just gonna look back and discuss this form that we've missed from last session. We are going to be, so it's a lot on my screen right now, but we'll go for, I guess, from left to right. Just confirming that this document is being used and that is it nurses that are using this form?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. So we have the vital signs of temp, pulse, and respiratory rate. So we have that in the vital signs section up here. Different the DTAs, those highlighted in green. is that all that is captured for vital signs based on your form, Chris?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I'll just move on to the dry weight here. For each of these sections, for the CAPD here, IPD here, and on the top right here, we have the CCPD. They all have the dry weight, which is highlighted in green here. So PD dry weight for all three of them. And for the number of exchanges, I don't know the difference between the number of exchanges up here and the exchange number down here. So I was wondering if the DTA highlighted here in green is capturing what is being captured here.
Yes, number of exchanges is the same as cycle number. And then the exchange number in the bottom, that is like, what is that? The first bag, the second exchange, the third exchange, and the fourth exchange. That's just the numbering, like.
Okay, so number of exchanges up here is a total, and exchange number
yes,
here is
that's
like
correct,
letters.
yeah.
Okay, so it looks like in this DTA, it's capturing the one at the bottom here.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't. Number of exchanges, I do not currently see a DTA that captures it. I wonder if
like the one in the manual incremental PD, the cycle exchange number is just the same as the number of exchanges. That is only specific to the machine when you say cycle number.
Okay, so you're saying it's specific to a machine.
Yeah. But if you just say exchange number, it will be the same for both.
Oh, okay.
CAPD and CCPD, the machine and the manual.
Okay, so let me just. So you're saying for IPD, this would be you using this field to capture the cycle number.
Yeah, when you just say exchange number, it will cover the CAPD and the CCPD, the machine and the manual.
Okay, that is for CCPD, you said?
The cycle, the term cycle is, we use it for the CCPD.
Okay. So if I think going back to this part of the form, if I wonder if we would need, if you'll be able to decipher from filling this out the total number of exchanges.
For manual exchanges like the CAPD, we have a default number of exchanges when we are doing it. Like we have a standard number of exchanges that we're supposed to do, unless a doctor will require more than 4 exchanges, something like that.
Okay, and this is documented before the treatment?
Yes, that is. It depends on the doctor's order, but without if the doctor's order is delayed, so we assume it's 4.
Does the prescription have this, Maritza? Do you know?
Yes, it will be on the IPD prescription. The PPO, there's a PPO for that. That it will capture that. Yeah.
So if it's on the prescription, then it can be that can be referred for this information.
Sorry, which section is that?
Number of exchanges.
Number of exchanges. Currently, that is on PPO, but that should be captured on the power form.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So clinicians can refer to the power form as well for this information. Is that okay, Chris?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So moving down here, I was wondering what this amount column is capturing.
It's the amount of solution we're putting into the patient. If it says 2 liters, so that is the default amount. But on the other, we can put whatever is needed, like 1.5 to 0.5 liters or something like
that. And if you put something in the other, does that cancel out the 2 liters right away?
Yeah, so if it's 2 liters, we just encircle the 2 liters.
Okay. This would be for, would that be in the fill volume, I wonder, on the left-hand side here?
That's correct. That is just exactly the same.
Okay. So fill volume for solution type 1, for solution type 2, is that capturing that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then for the solution, is it any of these on the list here?
Correct.
Okay. Does whatever's on the list, does it have everything that you would need?
Yep. We don't even use the balance, but
Okay. And on the top right here, same for CCPD?
yes, exactly the same as the CAPD.
Okay, perfect. And then from the last session, I recall that you don't use any more than 4 solutions. Is that correct?
Not really. It depends on the patient, but occasionally we may use more than that, so we
Okay.
don't know.
Okay, so there's just the 5th and the 6th option are currently hidden, so you can bring that forward if the patient does need it, just so you know.
Okay.
Okay. The solution types here, I take it it's the same as what we just reviewed for the solution types?
Yeah.
Okay. So this part here, I was wondering what the cumulative volume here means. And I know from earlier discussion that it was confirmed by Wayne that, that's Providence, that they don't need the ones in purple, but I was wondering if the ones in purple are the ones that is being captured from this
So
section.
the in is actually the fill volume, the amount, and the out is the actual fluid that's being removed, and then we just minus them, and then that is the balance.
Oh, right here, the PD fluid and PD fluid removed.
Ultrafiltration per cycle, it can be a term for the machine, but yes, it will yield the same answer.
Sorry, you're saying you would need this field ultrafiltration per
The
cycle?
ultrafiltration per cycle, it will be more appropriate when you are using the machine.
Okay.
The term cycle is the machine term, right? The CCPD one. But the cumulative ultrafiltration is that is the actual balance. The comparison is the balance, that is the
Okay.
cumulative ultrafiltration.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you would definitely need these two. You would need to document on these 2 fields. Is that correct?
In real world, we don't really need them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the machine will actually give us the summary at the end, not every cycle.
Okay.
We just want the total UF, not the cumulative UF.
So cumulative UF.
But this form that you are showing to us, it can be used for the machine and for the manual. So this is not specific to CAPD or CCPD. We can both use them, either the UCCPD or IPD. Now you're confused.
I admittedly am.
So bottom line though, no matter what, are these items required for documentation in the future state?
Which item?
The ones in purple.
Yes. But as I said, the cumulative ultrafiltration is not actually needed on the machine. If they do CCPD, we just want the total UF. But for IPD or the CAPD, yes.
So the end user will understand when they need to document to those, but what I'm hearing is that this is a requirement to have in the system to be able to document to, correct?
This is a requirement based on the paper that you are showing me.
So where my mouse is currently, my pointer is currently, that is being captured by these purple fields, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Now, currently, this is currently hidden. Do you want it turned on for your location? That way it's defaulted to be viewed instantly if you document it regularly? Otherwise, every time a user wishes to document on these fields, they would need to turn this on from the settings.
I don't know, maybe yes. I'm not very sure, but if it is there, then we need to fill it up, I think.
Okay, so I'll just mark down as we're gonna change it to be on view for your users. And then, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and then the type of weight, what type of weight is being captured in this section here? Is it any of these weights on the left-hand side?
I'm not really sure. We're not filling that weight part there.
Are you just skipping this section altogether, the weight column?
Yeah, we're not using that portion.
Okay, so you're skipping this column, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then can I ask what is being captured in a nurse's reference here?
So
The
that
big
is
one.
our initial assessment from the patient.
Okay,
The
okay,
patient says swelling,
okay.
appetite, all those stuff.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's being captured somewhere else. I
Mhm.
have a couple of outstanding, so that covers, oh, sorry, down here, added medications. It will likely be captured on the MAR if it's ordered through the PPO.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, okay. And then a couple of outstanding questions. You've noticed that we only have PD dry weight, PD wet weight, and then in the future state, we'll likely have a new a field called PD goal weight if we were to separate the goal weight from the HD goal weight. Based on the form that you guys use, will those be sufficient to cover whatever's on whatever's on this next to the star here?
Yeah, weight on this one is the actually weight, wet weight. Dry weight is weight without the fluid, and goal weight is the weight that we want. So I think yes.
Did you say that's a yes?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. The number of changes, we covered that. Wayne, are you still on the line?
Yep.
Yeah, hey, just one question. I just want to confirm that if we do create a new DTA for PD goal weight, that it won't be an issue. I was looking back on your email, the email thread, that it won't be an issue for cutover.
As long as no one has to cut over orders again. I don't
So
think that,
if we do create this PD goal weight, it will wipe out the current goal weight that is entered in the current PD sections in Power Chart. And it seems like my assumption from your email was that the workflow in your unit was that clinicians do not refer to the IV to determine what the goal weight is, but instead they look at somewhere else. So if
Yeah.
it does get wiped out, it won't be a problem when we do build this new DTA.
I don't believe when I spoke to Dave and Aviv, they were like, no, I don't think that will affect us. And
Okay.
Christy's sitting here shaking her head. So can we just document that Christy Carpenter approved that? Christy Christensen, not Carpenter. No, that should be okay.
Okay.
In all seriousness.
Thank you for confirming. All right, I think, Marit, so that's it from me.
Great, thank you. Glad you got everything you needed. Okay, just gonna take the screen
Sure,
back. That's okay?
Yep.
Thanks.
Stop.
All right, so moving on to referral waitlist review and some COVID screening updates. So from our initial session, our group just wanted some further clarification on the clinic's referral triage and waitlist process. So particularly, do the PDRNs have to be involved in triaging referrals before the UC schedules referred patients? So from our understanding and the requirements that we gathered, your current workflow is that with referral triage, your PD UC will book off 2 afternoons a month for pre-assessment, and then the KCC nurse would bring referrals to Dan or Chris as needed. And from a referral waitlist perspective, the KCC nurse will indicate when the patient should be seen for the PD UC to book. Is that correct? Like that workflow right now?
Yes, and some urgent pre-assessment too.
Okay,
So
I guess
what I'm saying is not definite that it's only 2 afternoons per month. It can be random any day of the month. As the KCC deem it will be urgent to see the patient right away.
Okay. I think Heather, did you need some more information just to support some like scheduling perspectives or build?
Well, I still don't know for sure what the workflow will look like in the future. Is Flo still on?
Here I am.
Hi, Flo. Just curious, do you foresee the need for using a referral encounter to do the triage process? Or do you foresee the clerks just reviewing the request list with the nurses before Esther books the appointments?
Yeah, I don't think we'll be using a referral encounter.
Okay, so even though the nurses are going to be involved in a little bit of triage, we don't want to create the referral encounter and have them review the list and enter an accept order before it be scheduled.
I don't think so, but I can leave that to Chris and Esther to speak to. I just don't see them using a referral encounter and using the accept and reject. We'll probably just receive the referral, create the pre-outpatient encounter, and I think what gets reviewed is like the priority of when to book it. Does that sound right, Chris, Esther?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, it's not like you get rejected, it's just more so like figuring out when to schedule who.
Okay, so even though they do triage, we're not going to implement the enterprise triage workflow. The two of them will just work together to find out or figure out when the patient should be scheduled. Okay.
Thank you. So we'll take that back and yeah, so hopefully no questions around that. Okay. I did want to move into your referral waitlist process currently on the unit. So it was identified that there are 3 binders that are currently being used. One to keep track of patients that have not yet been referred but not yet seen, patients seen and referred to the bedside, and patients seen and referred to surgery. So internally, our team was discussing what would the future state look like and if there were any certain functionality that could help support replacing these binders. So for patients that are referred and not yet seen, this can be tracked and trended using the work QM. When referrals are faxed in, you could see that on the list as well as the request list prior to booking appointments. But we weren't really sure about how we could support 2 and 3. And I think I really wanted to touch base with our St. Paul's colleagues here about how they currently are tracking these patients. Wayne, I'm not sure if you're still on the line or available to speak to that.
Oh, damn, Christy was talking to me.
So the question is, do you guys track patients that have been seen and referred to the bedside and surgery? And if yes, how are you doing that right now?
We do transition now, so we keep it's an Excel spreadsheet. So
did you hear that?
I heard
we
Excel
do transition rounds. So there's an Excel spreadsheet that has all the patients that would be transitioning out of KCC, either the hemodialysis or PD or transplant, and we just go through those and review where they are and what's going on. So that's where we keep that information.
The PD bedside center and chemo, whether they've seen vascular access initiated. So
okay. So I guess with your previous discussions with CST, there weren't any viable solutions to help support 2 and 3. It sounded like it's still an out of system process.
Patients were seen and referred to bedside. So they would do that, and then the KCC physician would put in the order for a bedside catheter. And then the patients would be reviewed by the PD physician and then was like, no, we can't do this as a bedside. This needs to be a surgical case. So then they would do a referral to Dr. Scott, and I don't think it's done in Cerner, is it, or is it?
Dr. Scott.
No, so then they would like contact Dr. Scott and say, we've got a PD catheter insertion that we need you to do, and give her the details.
There's nowhere quick to look at on Cerner to say whether or not they had their output assessment to bedside or
Yeah.
surgical consult done. That's like primary nursing looks it up.
So we don't capture that anywhere in Cerner as such, like that the bedside assessment's been done, abdomen assessment's been done, this has been the referral, which, I mean, ultimately you probably could use situational awareness to
Right, so
jot that
we can't
information.
see, but I can see it hasn't been fully, it's under
Yeah.
actually diagnosis for problems.
Yeah.
When it says CKD, it'll then say modality PD, modality HD.
Yeah.
Bedside surgical, but it's only, that's a extra. So I mean, it's not done for most of the patients really. It's a goal.
Okay, so it sounds, from what I'm hearing though, it's still an out of system process that you guys are using, like the Excel, to keep track of patients referred to bedside and referred to surgery.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I guess given that it might be the same for VGH PD, so you guys might need to still continue using the binders for 2 and 3.
Yeah, that's what we're doing right now.
I don't know, Flo, did you have any concerns with that? I'm just trying to think if there's any way that our team can support that out of system process or tracking. Okay. Okay, thank you. I did want to just circle back with the COVID-19 screening power form. So it is a power form that's available in the ad hoc folders for the clinicians to be able to bring up. The data would flow into iView and results review for any other clinician accessing the patient's chart to see and trend and track. Our recommendation is for the nurse to complete this screening form at the time of patient check-in. From our understanding from the last session, it was mentioned that the nurse would be the first clinician to see the patient, and our suggestion is that you could bring a WOW or workstation and wheels to the front desk to do the screening prior to bringing the patient to an exam room. I think our recommendation is to use the Cerner form and not use the paper form. If you want to use the paper form, it would have to be scanned back into the chart. The information on that form will not be available in PowerChart in the different sections. So that would make it a little bit more challenging for end users to see your COVID-19 screening information. So, any comments or questions about our recommendations? Hearing nothing, we're just going to put that as our recommendation and just let us know if there are any concerns in the next session. Okay. I did have the allied health review section next, but I'm not sure if the dietitian is has joined just yet. If not, then I can just move on to the for my forms analysis and then loop back with Kathy to do her review. Don't believe the dietitian's on yet, hey?
Hey, Maritza, while we're trying to work that piece out, for the COVID screening, we have one of the nurses call the patient like before the appointment, and then the UC does the screening because that's the first person they see when they're checking in. So we screen them right then and there. So it's the UC that does the in-person screening and documents in Cerner, just for your guys over there, if that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I think that was discussed previously. I think there were some concerns with the PDUC's workload of being responsible for checking in all the patients and doing the COVID screening on top of all that. But I think I'll leave that and defer that to operations to figure out. But our recommendation is to use the COVID-19 screening form available in Cerner. Okay, so I'll just move on to the next kind of forms review, and I'll wait for the dietitian to join, and then I'll let Kathy know when she could transition into her section here. So I'll just skip over that for now. What I really wanted to do was review this PD program patient assessment form that was discussed in our last session. So just to recap, the conversation around the use of this form was whether we could create a new power form for the nurses to document their assessment for patients coming in for their clinic visit. We did review some of the iView sections, but it was decided that documenting an iView would be a little bit more challenging given the frequency or infrequency of using this assessment form. So when we were looking at what was available in Cerner, we are suggesting that these two power forms can be leveraged to support documentation. So one of them is the ambulatory adult renal quick assessment power form, as well as the fulsome ambulatory assessment renal. So let me just show you what that looks like in the system. Just gonna pull up my power chart. Okay. Can you guys see power chart? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. So from the ad hoc folder, the nurse would be able to select the specific folders. There is a specific adult ambulatory specialty clinic folder here. And if you select that, it opens up multiple folders and the nurse would just select renal. And then I'll pull up their quick assessment power form. So I'll just click and select chart to bring that up. So there are a number of different sections here. The one with the red asterisk indicates that this is a required field to be completed prior to signing the form. So this is where you would be able to document any vital signs or those static vitals, as well as height, weight, and BSA, BMI, if that's appropriate. From a systems review, this is where the nurse can go in and do their systems assessment documentation here. So there's a number of sections here: is general, head and neck. I think this is more reproduction, but you don't need to document to these sections if it's not necessary. And then flowing down, there's your respiratory, cardiac, GI, skin, and then moving forward down, there's neuro here, kidney, bladder, and psychosocial. Would this be an okay alternative for your future state to do your PD assessments? Yes, Chris, would that be okay? I'm going to take your silence as yes, but if you have concerns, please speak
Sorry,
up.
I'm
No
muted.
problem.
So what I'm
Okay.
saying is it's actually a lot of data in this form compared to the original form that we have. And also we need to match our form to whatever the form, the lines that it will be matching the questions that we ask for the clinic.
So in your PD assessment form, most of the items should be found here. I think that there is, we're just concerned about limitations to build any net new power forms if there are existing forms that could be leveraged. Just keep in mind that this is also utilized by other renal areas and other renal clinics.
Yes, I understand that, but it will take a while for us to figure out which line that we need use in comparison to the form that you are showing. And also, it will be better if we can adjust actually, it will be highlighted in our part what we need to fill up on this form compared to that form that there's only like less than 10 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Maritza, isn't there an outpatient short one as well? There's a shorter one than this one. But the thing to remember is you don't have to do all of these spots. None of these are compulsory as such.
Yeah, and I understand that, but what I'm saying here is we only have 15 minutes for that, for our part when we do clinic.
Yeah, and I understand that. I think we just have to balance what would be a nice to have versus what's a must have, given the tight timelines. So most of what is on your paper form is available here in this power form. I do appreciate that there is like a learning curve of identifying the items that you need to document too. But it is really hard to approve any net new build if there's something already in the system available that, you know, really matches what is available, like kind of like links up to what is available for you to document to from your paper.
So
form.
you're saying that we just need to say yes. So yes, then.
Yeah, kind of. Sorry. I think
So
it's
yeah,
just really
so it's not actually an option to say no. So yeah, yep, of course.
okay. I did want to point out though that in your paper form there is a line item that calls out adequacy test that would for the nurses to document date and transport type. That is something that isn't available in this power form that we could add. So that is something that we could look into.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I'm just not sure where, which section in this quick assessment power form would be appropriate. I do have this renal summary section highlighted, so I'm not sure if that might be an okay area to add that adequacy test. Like, would that make clinical sense for you as a nurse to go here to document that?
Is there any form there that states around the PET testing? We can just add it somewhere there because they go hand in hand anyway.
Yeah, no, I understand that. There is a renal education section. This is more for transplant, but there isn't anything that I've seen specifically for the PET test. So I guess what I am recommending would be the renal summary to add those net new fields for you to document to.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that on your current paper form, there is the glucometer section. So unfortunately, because point of care glucometer testing affects enterprise build and so forth, there is an available existing power form that would capture that information. So it's in this adult ambulatory point of care folder. And within here, there is a specific whole blood glucose form that you could bring up to document to. So it's not something that we could add into the quick renal assessment power form, unfortunately. So the nurse would have to, unfortunately, select a separate form to document and capture that glucose reading or blood sugar reading. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Capture it by range. That specific line there, we are capturing it, the range of the patient when they're doing it at home, not a single result.
Oh, okay, okay.
Like 4 to 10, something like that. So
Okay. Any other questions around that?
no.
Okay, I did notice that Kathy has joined our session as well as your dietitian. So Kathy, are you on the line?
Hi, yes, I am.
Hey, are you okay to dive into your section here?
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, I'm just gonna stop sharing and hand it over to you.
Okay. And who is the dietitian on the line today? Hey, what's your name?
Karen.
Hey, Karen. I'm Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
I'm a dietitian by background, and your name actually looks really familiar. I think yourself and Angela Kwok came to one of my sessions, golly, like 2 years ago now, I think.
Pre-pandemic for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so hopefully some things maybe jog your memory. If not, feel free to ask questions. So I'm Kathy. I'm one of the clinical informatics leads with PHC, but I worked with a lot of the allied health documentation prior to St. Paul's coming live with CST Cerner. And Karen, I don't know if you remember, but we held a special renal dietitian session just to make sure that all of your charting that you needed was captured within CST Cerner, and that we also talked to each other so that the St. Paul's HD PD dietitians and your folks at VGH were kind of speaking the same language and charting the same way. So what I'll do is I'll just show what your paper form looks like today. And let me share my screen here. So what your paper form looks today, and we've basically matched it and crosswalked it to what it would look like later when you go live on CST Cerner. So let me make this a bit bigger here. I know it's quite small. Can you see that okay? Oh, I see you come closer to the camera, so it means I need to magnify it a little bit more. And I'll just go through it one by one just to make sure we got everything captured, and that feel free to ask any questions throughout, okay? So here I have your assessment plan, and then on the left here, I have CST Cerner Power Chart open. I have it opened to a patient, and I'm sure Maritza showed you all the different sections of the chart, and I'll basically just show you where the equivalent is in the chart. The main method that dietitians do our charting is through iView. Interactive view is a flow sheet-like way to do our charting because, as you know, so much of what we do as dietitians is sort of reassessments over time, following trends over time. So our professional practice leaders chose this as the best way. So we'll chart an iView in sort of a flow sheet-like way, and then we'll import it into something called a DynDoc, a dynamic document. And our PPLs have designed some templates for us that follow the ADYME format, so following international terminology and international formats for documentation in a very readable way for our colleagues and for also ourselves to read later. So essentially, a lot of the things that maybe we were transcribing before, you know, we would copy a patient's past medical history time and time again. We would kind of rewrite it in places. The really cool thing about CST Cerner is that it lives in one spot, and it's the truth. It's the source of truth that all clinicians can look at. What is that patient's diagnoses? What are their problems? Which is the new name for sort of past medical history. So a lot of the things that you will see on, I think, the top half of your nutrition assessment form are going to be found elsewhere in the chart for you to easily view, but you don't have to transcribe it again. It will pull automatically into your initial assessment note template. So it just takes that step away of transcription error, but also just makes it easier because it shows up on your assessment form. I'll kind of jump around, but looking at your first page of your assessment form, it sounds like it is important to know what the prior contact of that patient is, you know, whether they came from chronic kidney disease or if it's a new start, things like that. There's a really important way to look at that is through encounters. Everything in CST Cerner is encounters based. So right now I've opened up the patient chart and they are in the recurring encounter at the St. Paul's PD unit. But if you ever want to see what other active encounters they have or who they've seen in the past, if they're live with CST Cerner and they've been seen in those spots, you'll see those registered here. So for example, this patient has been into an inpatient kidney unit, as well as an outpatient kidney care appointment. For you as the dietitian, you can review that information, but also when you're talking to the patient and assessing any prior nutrition education that they've had, you can document that in our nutrition care iView band here. So what I've done is I've navigated to the interactive view section of the chart. And there's different bands in iView, so different flow sheets that we can pull up. And the main one that dietitians use is called Nutrition Care. And so basically everything you need is in here. So what you'll find in here, and you'll see that it matches with the right-hand side, is your reason for assessment. So where you would maybe document before, you can easily select, new PD start, if that's a reason why you're assessing. This list and everything that you'll see in documentation was something that all of the dietitian practice leaders came up with to really meet the needs of all dietitians everywhere. So Teresa and Eileen at the time were involved in determining this list. And really the nice thing about it is that if you need something else, you can click other and chart that accordingly. Consent is also charted here. So if you ever need consent, you can type in any extra details that you need. And then a large part of your nutrition assessment is done after. Other things I'm noticing on the first half of your assessment page are things like past medical history, lab data, and medications. Again, that belongs in elsewhere of the chart in one source of truth, so you don't have to transcribe. So diagnoses and problems, you'll see that in this part of the chart, diagnoses and problems, where you will see their past medical history. Lab data you will see in results review. This is a test patient, so we don't have a ton of real labs on them, but you will see them all here. And there are flow sheets that you can review, and one of them is a dialysis view flow sheet, where you will see probably a lot of your relevant data. I do know that nutrition folks are developing a nutrition-focused flow sheet to pull in relevant labs for you to review easily. And then any medications, if they're on Renovite or Rexulvite or anything else, can be referred to at the medication list. Okay, I'll move down this nutrition care form here. So next up on your form, you have the PD prescription and the HD prescription. That's seen in your, that's seen in your M page here, and it's a little bit, there it is. There's a dialysis management M page, which is sort of a souped up Cardex for you to see all your information. And so this is where you can see a person's PD prescription. So again, you're not translating and transcribing like you did before. You can see exactly what dialysate solutions they're on, when they were prescribed, when they were changed. Going back to your form here, any questions, Karen?
Not so far. I'm following along, but yeah, I do appreciate that we won't be transcribing and, possibly committing errors along the way. So that's good.
Yeah. Okay, and then looking at your form now, so a lot of your anthropometrics are here. And your sort of basic bread and butter nutrition history. So a lot of it will be in your food and nutrition history. So this is, please don't be overwhelmed with all the different fields that you see. You only need to chart on the ones that were relevant to you. So, your sort of basic diet history, you have these fields here. I know patients' dietary patterns aren't always fixed into, meals and snacks, but we did have to make a compromise here because these fields are limited in text. So if you wanted to write a whole sort of diet nutrition history, you just have to break it up a little bit into their patterns throughout the day. There's previous nutrition education here. So this is where you can note, and it'd be great if your colleague maybe saw that patient in the chronic kidney disease clinic and they did do, say, phosphorus education. You can see that here, but you can also chart that again.
Are you saying that that would be auto-populated from previous notes if there was education recorded?
No, sorry, it wouldn't be auto-populated, but you can see who and when did that education if they charted on that. Yeah, so all other things here, they all sort of match up to your form. Something to note would maybe be functional capacity as well. I know on your renal nutrition care form, there were some verbiage about subjective global nutrition assessment. So your functional capacity is there as well when you do your final score. Something I do want to show is anthropometrics, because that is something that you chart on. If you recall, Karen, something that was missing before we went live at St. Paul's was your interdialytic weight gain. And so we had that added, and it's added here under weight change because there's so many possible fields that you could chart in anthropometrics that we've organized it into height, weight, weight change, BMI, and then other. So this is where you would find your weight ID interdialytic weight gain is through weight change. And you'll notice the verbiage we agreed on interdialytic weight gain range, because different nephrologists, different patients, there's different goals of what their weight gain should be between dialysis, between runs. And so you can put that there. So, you know, whether it's a range, I apologize, I'm not too familiar with PD, but as you know, with HD, you know, your run can have 1 day in between or 2 days in between. So it is a range. I did notice that you have fields of high, acceptable, and low. That's something that the PPLs didn't feel like we needed to add to this, because we have a comment here and it is a little bit up to your judgment of what is high, acceptable, and low. Moving along here, a big one that a lot of the renal dietitians at St. Paul's uses is nutrition-focused physical findings. So this is where you're going to find, you know, if they are having more fluid buildup or some muscle wasting, you can note that here. Something that's really cool is if you are noticing, say, for example, edema, when you click it, oops, you can indicate the severity. And the verbiage is the same as your SGA, so mild, moderate, or severe. You can also select multiple things. So if you're noticing edema, but you're also noticing muscle wasting, and you chart that, you can indicate the severity of each of those things. Okay, moving on to the second page of your form. Is that okay? Okay. This is where you have diet history. So we actually have it sequenced a little bit earlier in terms of your diet history and dietary patterns earlier, as I showed here, that you can just type in however you like. And then on your form, you get into your nutrition requirements. So the exact equivalent is over here in CST Cerner, but it's called nutrition estimated needs. And it is all here, and you can do it as a range in terms of, you know, kcals per day, grams protein per day, etc. You'll notice that there aren't any calculations like Harris-Benedict or anything like that, because depending on the clinical scenario, you're going to be using different calculations and estimations, but they're all here for you, and you can indicate which one it was that you used.
I have a question about that. The 2020 KDIGO guidelines have basically changed our recommendations, and we're no longer doing, say, like a blanket 2 to 3 gram potassium diet. It's just so individualized. Is there any room for free form text? I typically put something like intake to maintain target labs. versus an actual range, which we don't measure anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are all numerical. If you are, maybe not now with your KDIGO guidelines updating the 2 to 3 range, but there is this here that I know our St. Paul's renal dietitians use quite a bit, is your estimated needs other, because I know your population, you focus a lot on sodium, fluid, and phosphorus, but other populations focus on others. So this is where you can indicate, sodium less than your 2000, and you can, oh, sorry. And sorry, what are the new guidelines now? Oh, sorry, Karen, you're on mute.
Basically, it would just be intake to maintain level. So we don't calculate out people's actual numbers now.
Okay, okay. So then it's free text, so you're welcome to type whatever you like. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Okay. It does, thank you.
Going back to your paper form, you have, again, your SGA rating and your nutrition risk here. So you have that here under nutrition status and risk. So this is where you can indicate your subjective global assessment, A, B, or C, as well as your nutrition risk. That's all there. I'm just going to chart a few things so that we have some examples when we pull it over to a readable note. And then last on your page, you have nutrition diagnosis. Something that's super cool that Sarah was able to do is that we worked with the academy and we got permission to essentially put all of their nutrition diagnoses into CST Cerner. So it's following the language that we're supposed to use in terms of what our standard terminology is for diagnosing nutrition issues. Has it for sort of your etiology and your, all of that is there. And then your sort of signs and symptoms of what we're used to, your evidence, this is where you can free test. It's something that's neat for patients that you do follow over time is you can keep track of the status of these diagnoses. So if it's something that they are continuing to experience, you can just chart that. And this does carry forward. This is a little something, a cool feature called the dynamic group, where it groups all of these fields together. And that's your diagnosis sort of number one. And you can add second diagnoses if you need as more come up. Or if one is no longer relevant, say, high K is no longer a problem, you can then inactivate that diagnosis. Your nutrition care plan. Okay, so what I'll show here is following in line with international terminology is nutrition interventions. I don't know about you, but over at St. Paul's, this was a little bit new for us in terms of verbiage. But again, it follows all of the academy's verbiage here of our nutrition interventions. So again, I'm just going to randomly pick a few things so that we can show our charting when we do that. So once I'm done everything, I will sign it and commit it to the chart. It's no longer purple, it's now black, so that means it's signed. And I can then pull it into my dynamic document nutrition template that we've designed. So we'll go to documentation, we'll go to add. And there is a nutrition care plan initial note template, as well as a follow-up note template that our PPLs have designed. And I'll just pull up the initial I'm going to try and make this bigger for you. I don't know if that makes it better or worse. But on the right here, it actually pulls in all of those things that we've had to transcribe before. So your past medical history, medications. A really cool feature we have that I can't show you with this, unfortunately, because it's a test patient, but we can tag lab results and pull that in. So if you notice, you know, like a high K or a high phos that you want to pull in and note it in your note, you can do that by tagging it and pulling it in here. We'll show you in training how to do that. And then everything else that you charted will show here in that ADIME format. So I didn't chart on a lot of things, but of the things that I did chart on, it has showed up here. And the cool thing about this, it's dynamic, DyneDoc. So say you don't want certain things to show up, you just remove it. We are optimizing this with Teresa right now to make it easier for you so that if you didn't chart on anything, you shouldn't have to clean it up. So we're doing it that it disappears right away. You don't have to do this cleanup before you sign your chart. So it's all here, your nutrition diagnosis, your goals, your interventions. The PPLs did elect for nutrition recommendations and nutrition monitoring and evaluation to be charted in this way instead of iView, just because of the text character limit that iView presents. Oftentimes when we are monitoring things or we do our recommendations, we're typing a little bit more because that is our intervention. So this is where you can free text. Oh, sorry. So nutrition recommendations, you know, this is where you can have your you can type whatever here. And this is what you're monitoring. Etc. Any questions?
No, it seems pretty clear. I'm wondering what the experience is in terms of the time commitment for a chart. Yeah, I'm wondering how that would normally work. Like what's the comparison between paper charting and this online option?
Yeah, what we're hearing is that it does take a little bit of getting used to of what fields, you know, you kind of train your eyes to draw to and to document on. I think the SPH dietitians, I'm sure, would be open for you to shadow them or something like that. Just from what I've seen, they tend to do this quite comprehensively for initial assessments. And then when you know the patient and you're doing follow-ups, it's a lot easier. And oftentimes clinicians do a follow-up note or use a free text note, you know, whether especially through your blood work week, you're doing, you know, quick notes to indicate what you did. So it's it takes practice, but not much. People do get used to it.
I've been wondering about the follow-up charting. We use a flow sheet format. And so for a good percentage of my patients, I'm just basically recopying labs, calculating the interdialytic weight gain. Yeah, so I'm thinking in this system, there won't be as much of that. It's more, I guess, chart by exception. So if you've done an intervention, then you would chart it. We're not necessarily going to be going back in and rewriting lab work that's already available in the computer somewhere else.
Exactly. I think it's also charting that you reviewed the labs and, you know, whatever intervention it was, and maybe your intervention was nothing because their labs were fine. So it's maybe doing a little quick note on that.
Just one question, I guess. Will the nursing staff be entering the weight gains, and would that auto-populate into the interdialytic weight gain somewhere, or fluid weight as we know it?
Yeah, so you'll see that in the dialysis management end page. This is where really the pharmacist, yourself, and the nephrologist would go to look at changes over time. And this is where you'll see the goal weight as well as the, I think your fluid removal too.
Oh yes, sorry, my apologies. I'm actually thinking of hemodialysis with the interdialytic weight gain, but this is also useful just so we know what the weight trend is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it in terms of your form. So it's all captured there. And then I did make a note, if you ever need to indicate sort of your local or how to reach you, you can just add that in yourself. We have a nifty thing called auto text, which, not to confuse you, but will teach you how to kind of make little note templates for yourself or little copy and paste. But for example, I made one of my signature, and after I chart something, I can just put my pager or my local at the end of my note if that's something you need to do for clinicians to contact you. Okay, I just have a couple questions for you on my end. Oh, sorry, and I have a couple notes outside of documentation. I think Maritza reviewed how nephrologists and nurses can consult you using a consult order and then a multi-patient task list. Do you have any questions about that?
Typically, yeah, right now we see patients when they're new, and then we see them every 3 months for clinic. We do lab review, which we typically initiate ourselves. So there's actually not that many consults. I wouldn't expect that to be a big concern, I guess.
Yeah,
we basically initiate a lot of our
patients.
stuff. Yeah. Promise, we don't chart in Promise, but I do have a question about the clinic charting, because right now what we do is chart on a paper clinic form. So I'm wondering what the clinic charting will look like every 3 months. It's interdisciplinary as it stands.
Okay, when your patients come into PD clinic.
But it's on a paper.
Okay. Maritza?
I can answer that.
Oh, okay. Hey, Flo.
So basically the charting that you guys do on paper, you will just be charting it now in Cerner and creating your own individual clinic notes, like dynamic document notes, kind of the screen that Kathy's on right now. Because I know the one you're talking about is one sheet, and then there's all the different sections where each discipline just writes on it, and then it gets filed in the chart. So instead of that, it will just be your individual clinic notes for each of you directly into Cerner.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And Karen, do you order oral nutrition supplements through Promise?
I do.
Yeah, okay. So that will continue because that's, provincial funding and that's how they keep track. And still fax to McDonald's pharmacy, that won't change.
Okay.
Okay. Quick question for you. Sorry, Maritza, I don't know how we're doing for time. But do you do any body composition monitoring?
This is very rare in peritoneal. So mostly we would use it in hemo.
Okay. Okay. So this is sort of a non-issue in PD.
It would be a one-off situation. I think generally the patients tend to run, their fluid status isn't as tight as it is with hemodialysis, just because they're having dialysis every day and they still have some residual kidney function. So yeah, I think in 7 years, I've done one.
Okay. Okay. Well, if you ever need to, chart your overhydration volume or what you get out of that Fresenius Cavi program, you can just do that again in your note and all the different sort of free text fields that we have.
We're pretty good for time. I just wasn't sure because the last session when I reviewed some of the allied health features in Cerner, I really glossed over the multi-patient task list and the consult orders workflow. I just wasn't sure if you wanted another look in the system. especially since we have Kathy here, who's the expert.
Yeah, I think I missed that one. There was a session where we didn't get pulled into the meeting, so I don't know anything about that.
In terms of time, I do have time if you can spare a few more minutes, Kathy, just to quickly review multi-patient task list and the consult orders.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll share my screen again. And Maritza, PD is a recurring encounter, right? So
yeah,
perfect. Okay. So say, I know you follow your PD patients over time, but maybe there's like something that happened that the nurse or the nephrologist just wants to notify you about for reassessment. So maybe say they did an ad hoc blood work between blood work weeks and it's abnormally high and they want to notify you. What they can do is consult you. And consult is really not really the right word, because in Cerner language speak, consult is sort of meant for inpatients and referrals are meant for outpatients. But in your case, in PD and also in HD, consult is used because you're using recurring encounters. So what the physician or the nurse would do is they would click dietitian adult consult. They would enter their name. And this shows up of the consult and then the reason for consult. So say other. Sign that. They would commit to the chart indicating that they consulted you. And then what that would do is, I apologize, I didn't have my multi-patient task list set up, but this is good because you can see how we set it up. Is that this is kind of your task list to pull in all the consults that you might have. Right now I have it set to BC Children, so let me remove that. We'll go down to St. Paul's PD. And that says this St. Paul's SPH Renal PD, or where is it located?
Yes, this should be, oh, you're just right there. It's the second one from the bottom. SPH Renal Peritoneal Dialysis.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. So you just have to set this up once, Karen, so don't be too daunted by it, please. So I've set it up. I've set the sort of time frame to be today. And this is where I'm going to indicate where all the tasks that come in. So typically all your consults, so if they're placed at that location, SPHPD, it's going to pull into here. What's really cool is that your position will be configured to pull in all the adult dietitian consult orders and tasks. And the pharmacist will have their position pull in all our pharmacist consult tasks. So you'll only see the ones that are relevant to you as the consult for the dietitian. So here is our Mr. SPHPD guy, the gentleman I just put the consult on. So you can see there. And sorry. And this is where you can open the patient chart and review the information and do your patient assessment. So it looks a little bit bare here, obviously, because we only have one person. But if you have a large caseload and you do have consults, it's nice because you can see the reason for consult pretty face up here in the column. So it kind of can help you triage your day and plan your day. If you have someone that you just saw, it's not as much of an issue, or hey, gosh, this is pretty important, I need to go see this person or call that person, it's available there for you. Normally, for dietitians and allied health, if we are actively following someone, we would put in an order called dietitian following order, just to indicate that they are actively on your caseload. I know that the renal dietitians, their practice is a little bit different because, like you said, they follow everyone and they have their own processes to screen patients and to follow them. So you might not do that at VGH. You might just use multi-patient task list to see all your new consults.
We do have a robust, there's a lot of documents, like external documentation or things that can't be captured.
Any questions?
So like our, you know.
Just one, what's going to happen to all the patient assessments that we've done to date? How will that data be entered into the computer?
Good question. So generally what you have on paper will stay on paper. I don't know if your program has plans to sort of scan it in or to kind of start fresh. That's kind of a site-specific decision. But generally what we do going closer to go live is there'll be a sort of operational and quite a stringent discussion on what gets cut over from the paper chart over to your electronic chart. So oftentimes these are things that are, you need it for that first day that the patient is live in CST center. So in your renal population, you know, that might be the PD prescription, might need to be put in. I think those discussions will come later. But in terms of your own nutrition assessments, you kind of start fresh, you know, that stuff, that old stuff is on paper. Anything new will start in CST center.
Just wanting to highlight there's always a period of time where you have to work and live in the hybrid world. So some things will be identified as remaining on paper, and you'll just have to refer back to the paper chartlet for a period of time.
Okay, that's fine. I was just wondering if there was an expectation that we would go back, enter all the assessments.
Hey, it's Wayne and Christy here. We didn't go back and do any entry. Basically, what we did was put through medications, problems, and small bits of information. And ultimately, we got rid of our charts like within about the first month or so because we weren't going back into them at all. We did the basic cutover, and then it was like we were off, and you could just start using Cerner for everything.
Oh, Karen, I think you were on mute if you said something there.
Yeah, the only thing we keep a chartlet for now has like the Baxter form as well as any consents which need to be scanned and uploaded into Cerner at a later date.
Okay, thank you. I had said thank you, but I was on mute. That's great.
Thanks, Wayne, for sharing your experience. That's really helpful.
And the whole cutover piece really teaches you how to use Cerner as well. So that's actually really an important engaging piece to do, is get many of you as you can, because that's where you're really going to start to learn to navigate Cerner.
Great, thank you for that. And thanks, Kathy, for the walkthrough. Any other questions from the allied health folks on the line? Okay, good. I'm just going to dive right in to just do a quick reforms review with the group here before we finish up. Shouldn't take too long. So what I have on my screen is your current peritoneal dialysis assessment form. I just need some clarification on how this form is used currently, who documents to it, etc.
Is over the shoulder.
Is this being used right now?
You know, people do what they need.
Yes, it is. Sorry. So we are using that that is the assessment form we use for those patients who come from KCC that will be we will be assessing them for if they will be able to do PD or not. So that is the form that we are using. This is the form that we use to assess suitability of patients to do PD at home.
Okay, and then is it just the nurses that use this form, or are there any other clinicians?
I think This form at the back, there's few pages of this one. On the end part of this, there is a doctor's part in there, wherein if the patient is needed to be seen by the doctor, then the doctor will chart on that part. But most of the time, it's only the nurses who's filling this form up.
Okay, so we will have to take this back to see where we could leverage existing build for you to be able to document to these pieces here.
Okay.
Thank you for that. And then this one, I wanted to confirm, it's your RN checklist for first-time chronic PD patients. How is this form being used and is it still in use?
So the first time when the patient will undergo insertion, the first day that we're going to meet the patient post-insertion, so we will going to make sure that all these forms are filled up. So this is the checklist and the date that we accomplish the task and the signature of the nurse.
Okay, and then this is just kept as a formal piece of the patient's chart?
Yes, it will be kept on the chart, yes, in the front
Okay.
of the nurse's notes.
Okay. I just have a question for Wayne. I didn't see anything like this in the system or on Forms Fast or anything for St. Paul's. Do you guys currently have something similar to this as a checklist for nurses in your clinic?
Not for Cerner, because it's all parts of things that some of them are mandatory fields that the physician has to do, like MedRec and other bits and pieces. So it's all part of Cerner now. This is really for paper charting. And even then, I don't think we had that sort of formal process as much.
Okay, so from what you're telling me, Chris, this is still pretty important for your VGH clinic workflow for the nurses to keep track.
Yeah, this is just like a tracking tool that we have all the forms for a new patient.
So,
Okay.
Chris, just so you know, like the allergy status is something that's mandatory in Cerner, so you can't sort of go on in certain fields without having those done. The most form is in Cerner, it's on the top of the banner. Like there's new ways of finding it. So some of this looks important, like for your own documentation, but some of these fields are already going to be in Cerner in different ways. I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm saying like there's going to be some redundancy in this form.
Also building a training PowerPoint, right?
So this form will actually say like the allergy status. It's only saying that the doctor filled up the allergy status and we check yes, and then the date, and then whoever check it, right? So that is all it is. It's just like a reminder for us to check everything so that the chart will be complete.
Realistically, it truly is a checklist. And from a CST Cerner perspective, we generally do not build checklists into the Cerner system. What we've directed many programs to do is if you have checklists that you're wanting to leverage, we can put in requests to have your checklist built as part of Forms Fast.
Yeah, this one is designed for the paper chart. So I don't know how it be translate if we go to Cerner, how can we check those, right?
Yeah,
No, that's what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying is we could build it into Forms Fast, for which then you can print it off and have that available for staff to then, do their checking.
I think you'll find, Chris, once you're in there, there's a lot of redundancy in this form that you don't really need because there's some force function in doing orders and other bits and pieces. But, it's a good starting point while you're just transitioning over.
Okay, no, thank you for that information. So if there is a need, like Christine mentioned, we could put a request in to upload this into Forms Fast for printing, but certain sections like the allergy status and the most is visible for all clinicians to see in the chart in real time. But thank you for the information, so we can take that away. The next form I just wanted to point out is that you guys currently have this peritoneal dialysis clinic follow-up form. I just wanted to clarify if this is just given to the patient to indicate.
No, that is the actual form where the doctor and the other healthcare member will write something about the patient when they have seen in the clinic. So that is a clinic sheet. So everybody will use that. The nurse, the doctor, the dietitian, the pharmacist will use this form on the clinic day. This is where we pulled all the data from the patients for each member of the healthcare team. So you only see physician assessment, but in the back there will be nursing, dietitian, pharmacy, all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So then when, as mentioned previously, the individual clinicians would have their own clinic note when they do their assessment with the patient, and that should be available in the documentation portion of the chart. I just wanted to just mention that this form is available currently right now in FormsFast for St. Paul's, and it looks identical. So I just needed to check if this is even used right now at St. Paul's. I guess this is a question for Wayne and Christine.
I think this one, Marita, is for downtime type things, when the system goes down and we need to have our documentation piece, but that's the only time. We don't use it anymore.
Okay. Because yeah, this form should then be accessible in like a black or gray box on the unit physically as a paper.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it sounds like, Marissa, we actually don't need to have it in FormsFast because downtime forms aren't supposed to be in FormsFast. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
I think it was a safety blanket thing for us not knowing, and it got in there. So
yeah, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. No, a few things got in for many other programs as well.
So I wanted to check with VGH. Currently, again, for St. Paul's, there's this peritoneal dialysis adequate patient input form available for printing. Is there an equivalent at VGH?
There is, but because the adequates now that we are using is from the share source from Baxter. And then there is there's a new input form now. This is just an input form that you're showing in there. So we have the same thing like that, but I think there will be a new form that Baxter will be providing for the adequates that we are using through their system, like the share source system.
Oh, okay. So would that then just be something you could access on the Baxter website?
No, they will be providing us like a paper form.
Oh, okay. Okay. So then we don't need anything to be available in Cerner for this.
I think you could.
Okay, perfect. The next few slides pertain to the adequate test collection instructions. So I've noticed that for St. Paul's, there's a number of different forms for PET tests as well as separate forms for follow-up adequate test instructions, and they're separated out per modality. The last session we had asked for you guys to send us over what instructions you have for PET tests, and it was just a single form. So I think with all that being said, I don't know if there's differences in how the patient conducts their PET test across sites, because when I looked at the forms, it was very different.
The adequate test is similar across, like it's the same thing, but for the PET, there's different kind of PET tests. So the instruction will differ, depends on what kind of PET test are you trying to test.
Okay, yeah. So right now I just have the follow-up adequate test collection instructions for CAPD that St. Paul's has available for printing. Doesn't sound like VGH has a similar type of document.
Exactly the same instruction, but yeah, different format.
Yeah. So the second one is this is the follow-up test for CCPD. The PET test specifically that St. Paul's has is separated out into two forms. So you see on the left CCPD as well as CAPD. But what we collected from you guys was just one kind of, I believe 3 pages. And it was just PET tests that called out a section for CPD and CAPD.
Yeah, there's a different instruction for CAPD and CCPD for PET tests, only on this specific kind of PET tests, right? There is a lot more kinds of PET tests other than this.
Yeah, so what that, sorry, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, that I'm saying there's also like a 2-hour rapid test, all that stuff. So, but this is the most common that we are using for regular PET testing.
Right, let me see if I can bring up the VGH version. Can you guys see that okay? Did I switch over to Adobe or is it still in PowerPoint?
Still PowerPoint.
Okay. Okay, let me see what I can do here on my side. Sorry, guys. You guys see both PowerPoint and Adobe?
No,
No.
just PowerPoint.
Just PowerPoint. Okay. Sorry, I don't know why it's not showing up. Okay.
There we go. Yeah, that's the PET that we have. The
Yes.
instruction for
Because
PET.
when I was looking through this, it looked very different than what St. Paul's has available. So that tells me that it's a slightly different process that is done at St. Paul's and at VGH. So what I'm getting at is that I think we might need to just upload this VGH specific PET test to be available for printing in Forms Fast, rather than trying to go through a process of consolidating the forms together for one
You could
enterprise
bring in an external, but
use.
we do have a workflow for staff podiatrists. So I think
Would
the
that be
external
okay?
would fall under that other bucket.
Yes. Yeah. It's basically almost the same, but
It isn't, it isn't, because there's certain differences in how the wording is in
Yes.
regards to the patient's prep, the first day versus day 2, and then the different type of solutions. So I would recommend just uploading the VGH specific one so that it's
Sure, yeah.
available. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Let me just go back to my PowerPoint. Okay. So we can do that. So here is just like a screenshot of what would be visible when you type in peritoneal in the search bar in the Forms Fast application. So you'll have a list of different documents that you could select to print. So we will upload the VGH PET one specifically and title it so that it's denoted with VGH on there for you guys. Other than that, that's all I have for today. I do acknowledge that it is, the afternoon of a Thursday before a long weekend. Just want to open up to the group if there are any other questions. If not, I'll just quickly summarize what our next steps are and what sessions you can anticipate moving forward. Not hearing anything, so I'll take that as no questions. Just want to catch up that we did take some action items away, and we'll follow up and have some internal discussion with our team. As previously mentioned, there is an order set gap review session that Carrie will be having with Dr. Singh on the 21st of April. Our next follow-up session is scheduled for May 2nd, and then there is a subsequent order sets design session scheduled sometime in June. So with that, I just want to say thank you for everyone for joining us, and I'm happy to say that you guys get 20 minutes back on a Thursday before a long weekend. So happy Easter, happy long weekend, and reach out to our team if there are any other questions.
Thanks, Marita. Bye. Have a fun day.
Thank you.